Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Eriko. I work in Regulatory Support Office with Resija Nambia. So in January Research Matter, I reviewed why we need to register and results reported in ct.gov. And there are many agencies and organizations requiring ct.gov reporting, and there are penalties associated for non-compliance. So today I want to review which study needs to be registered. So first thing first, regulation and policy require clinical trial to be registered on ct.gov. So you can put observational studies such as biomarker validation studies or epidemiological study if you want to, but it is not required for the most of the part. So I'm listing 3 very similar clinical trial definitions set by NIH, FDA, and publication policy. So say if your trial is NIH-funded trial, then you need to go by their clinical trial definition and follow their policy. And then say your trial is not NIH-funded and does not involve any FDA-regulated products, but PI plans to publish the study results in journal, then you need to go by this ICMJE definition. And then if it fits the definition, you need to register. So today I want to first give example of non-clinical trial. A study appeared to be clinical trial, but it does not require ct.gov registration. So one of the common example is a biomarker validation study. So for example, so if your investigator is prospectively enrolling 2 cohorts, so one is elderly patient with cognitive impairment, and then the second cohort is the elderly without cognitive impairment to assess the metabolic activity using PET scan. So your hypothesis here is metabolic activity that is measured by PET scan is different between these 2 cohorts. So metabolic activity is a biomarker of cognitive impairment. So in this example, PET scan is probably considered more than minimum risk research specific procedure, but it is not intervention, right? Because having PET scan or not does not change the health outcome or change the course of patient care. So PET scan in this example is just the observational tool, not the intervention, because you're not assessing the effect of PET scan in this study. So therefore, it does not meet any of the previous definition of clinical trial that is set by NIH, FDA, and ICMJE. So it does not require ct.gov registration. So now I want to give an example of clinical trial. So this is the NIH clinical trial definition. So in general, if you answer yes to all of these 4 questions, then it is a clinical trial, and therefore registration may be required. So traditionally, when you think about clinical trial, we think about randomized control device or drug trial. But NIH definition of clinical trial, as you can see in this image, their definition is much broader than that. So clinical trial include pilot study and behavioral intervention. So for example, if an investigator wants to assess the effect of educational program on the hospital readmission. So here education program is intervention, and then hospital readmission is a behavioral outcome. So that is clinical trial per NIH definition. And their definition also include mechanistic trial. So those are considered early translational studies. So say you give metformin to everyone and then assess insulin sensitivity. And so that is considered clinical trial per NIH definition. And then also by this definition, most of the chart review are actually not considered clinical trial, therefore does not need to be registered. However, there's an important exception. So pediatric post-market surveillance of device product, so which typically done in retrospective, like observational study fashion, are considered registration required study under FDA. So once you determine that study is a clinical trial, then in general, a clinical trial needs to be registered if the PI is IND IDE holder, or if it meets the definition of FDA applicable clinical trial, and if your trial is funded by NIH in whole or in part. Otherwise, if required by funding agency. So PI really needs to read the term and condition of their contract with funding agency. And then also if a trial involves procedure claimed to Medicare and Medicaid, or if required by journal for publication, as I mentioned. And for the results, posting are required if it meets the following on the right. So again, important thing to remember here is that one trial, one ct.gov record. So multi-site trial are not registered by individual site. So if your trial is a multi-site study, it must be registered only once. So in general, IND IDE holder or main site PI and industry sponsor will be responsible party to register the trial on ct.gov. So your PI must coordinate with all collaborators, sponsor before registering trial on the ct.gov to avoid the duplicate. And then say PI is unsure about whether study meets the definition of trial, because some trial are very tough one, like gray. We generally recommend to register anyway, as there is no significant downside of registration. So this flow chart summarizes what I just said. So right side on the document is helpful tips to answer each question in the blue box on the left. So this flow chart is available in our website, and also I can also email you if you wish. So our recommendation is before you initiate ERB submission, please go through this flowchart with your PI and then assess whether the trial requires ct.gov registration and results reporting. So now let's talk about metrics. So according to FedAnon Compliance Trial Tracker website, our compliance rate proportion was 68.2% in last May. And so this public website takes data from public ct.gov interface. So this is what the public sees in terms of UT Southwestern compliance for FDA regulated trial. So in February, like January, so we are able to maintain 100% compliant. So thank you everyone for your effort. But again, important to note that this 100% compliance is for FDA regulated applicable clinical trial results only. So it does not include NIH funded trial that are not applicable clinical trial or trial that are voluntary register. So as I mentioned last January, so we generated own metric that include all trial and their compliance directly from ct.gov internal database that are only accessible to institutions administrators. So this shows overall real-time compliance for all UT Southwestern records. So blue histogram is the total number of trial that is registered under UT Southwestern account. So green one is the number of record with no problem. So whatever the difference between blue and green are bad one. So those orange and red bars are need some attention, has some problem. So the orange one is a problem record that are not FDA trial, but has been flagged in the system with some sort of error. which must be corrected. And then the red one is the FDA regulated trial that are subject to federal monetary fines. And actually, these two results are currently under ct.gov review. So our goal is to continue with 100% compliant in non-compliant tracker website, this website. And we want this orange and red one to be as low as we can. So if you have any question or if you need any assistance about clinicaltrial.gov, please email us. So here are the list of contact person for ct.gov related issues. And I'm including list of selected resource. So thank you.
Thank you, Eriko. And we invite everybody to provide comments in the comment area while we're switching presentations. Just give it a couple